Good morning, everyone from the National Council side.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Melanie. Dani here from the National Council. How are you?
Good morning, Dani. Well, thanks yourself.
Fine, thank you. And next to me is Fani, but we'll introduce ourselves just now. Will you be able to guide us and just open up the meeting from your side, Melanie?
Not a problem at all. Will you let me know when you're ready to start?
Okay, you must just let me know for how many colleagues you are still waiting. We are fine. We can wait a while, no problem.
Okay, can we give it about 5 minutes? I'd say
Yes.
we've got 3 currently. We're looking at probably another 16 or so.
Okay, but let's give them time. I don't want them to miss out the beginning because it's
It's
rather
crucial.
important. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Not a problem. Okay, let's give them 5 minutes, then we can take it from there.
Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thanks, Dani.
Melanie, Dani again. Are you still waiting for more people?
Hi, Dani. Yeah, we're on 8 now. We were hoping for 20 that was invited. Do you still have maybe 2 minutes to spare?
Yes, no problem. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks. Hi, Dani.
Hi, Melanie.
Hi, okay, I think let's start. It is going to be recorded, so worst case, I can always just send the people that aren't able, could possibly be load shedding or something. It's causing a bit of delay, so I
Okay,
can send them the recording.
no problem. I'm just switching my camera on
Perfect.
so that you can see who is speaking.
Perfect. Hi, there, that's me as well.
But I'm not going to keep it on for the whole time.
Perfect.
I don't know. For some reason, I can't see myself.
Okay, I can see you though.
Okay, no, that's good. So thank you so much for joining us in this session about disability equity training, specifically then also for the South African Shelter Association. Before we start, I'm just going to ask Dylan and Fani to introduce themselves as well, because they will also be presenting, and Daphne will join us a bit later to do her part of the presentation. And then if I can ask if the rest of the team can just briefly introduce themselves. I just need to know what audience we are presenting to. It's always helpful if that is fine. So I'll start with myself. I'm Dani Marais, and I'm a senior manager at the National Council of and for Persons with Disabilities. And we've been doing this training for many, many years now. And from my side, I really hope that even if you take only one thing away from today's training that's going to be helpful for you, then I will be happy. So please enjoy it, and it's interactive. And Melanie, I need your guidance here, because when I'm presenting, I can't see if there's a chat or a question or a hand. If you can maybe just help me with that, then we will gladly answer any questions as we go along, if that is fine with you.
That's perfect. Thank you, Dani.
Okay.
If I
Okay, then.
can go next and introduce myself. So I'm Melanie, the Assistant Coordinator for the National Shelter Movement of South Africa. We'd like to take this opportunity to thank the National Council of and for Persons with Disabilities for this session. We're sure that we are going to walk away with a lot of more knowledge on the fact or on the processes that we need to follow when it comes to people with disabilities. And we look forward to it and our partnership with you guys. So thank you once again.
Only a pleasure. Then we are all sitting here next to each other. So I'm going to move the computer to Dylan so that he can introduce himself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dylan Mashele. I am the PR and Communication Officer for the National Council of and for Persons with Disabilities. I'll share with you reasonable accommodation in the work context.
Or in this case, in the shelter fund. And then Fani is sitting next to me.
Good morning, Melanie and colleagues. My name is Fani Swanepoel. I'm the Disability Information Coordinator at NCPD, and I will present on a non-visual disability. Thank you.
Thank you. So can we just have a brief introduction then, Melanie, from your side, your team, please?
Perfect, thank you. Okay, I'm just going according to the list. So if I could maybe ask Tina.
Good day, everyone. My name is Tina Makigela, and I'm one of the social workers from the NSM helpline.
Thanks, Tina. Sikona.
Morning, everyone. I'm a social worker at one of the shelters, Betchukum in Port Elizabeth.
Thanks, Sikona. Daleen.
Good morning, everybody. Daleen Roberts, manager at Sisters Incorporated in the Western Cape.
Thanks, Daleen. Gugu. Gugu, you're muted. Are you able to hear me?
Hi, Mariam and the members. I'm Sarah Legale for Brunswick's Family Advice Organization in Welkom, Free State.
Thanks, Sarah. Gugu and Lovo. You're unmuted. Okay, Gugu is from one of our shelters, Mtunzini. I'm not sure if there's a problem with her mic or not. Then we have Rose.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Rose Bailey. A social worker at Itimbeni Shelter in the Northern Cape.
Thanks, Rose. Sisters, I think that's Celeste.
Good morning, everyone. Celeste Solomon, social worker at Sisters Incorporated.
Thank you. Just checking the list one last time if I missed. Sidi?
Sure. I can't.
We can hear you, Sidi.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, because I was just struggling with this device. Sorry. Morning, everyone. My name is Tidi Matole. I am a social worker and center manager at Tirisana Victim Empowerment Center, which is in Mamihlake, Mpumalanga.
Thanks, Siri. Then we have another Zikona with us. She's busy connecting currently. Miriam's on as well. I don't know, Miriam, if you'd like to take the opportunity to introduce yourself.
Good morning. It's Miriam, the National Coordinator for NSM. Thank you.
Thanks, Miriam. Then Zikona, would you like to take the opportunity to introduce yourself? Okay, she's still connecting. Zikona is from our NISA shelter. That's fine. I think I've covered everybody. Thanks, Tani.
Thank you so much. And Miriam, it's nice hearing your voice after all the emails. Thank you for the introduction. It's a nice, diverse audience, and I've heard a couple of places that's very familiar to us. We operate across the country, and I'm also from the Free State, so the welcome team is close to my heart, and also the Northern Cape and all of the provinces. But let me stop there, and I'm going to start the presentation. And like I've said, please ask questions as we go along. It's really interactive. So if you can just again, Melanie, tell me if the presentation is visible. I just want to see, you made me co-host, eh?
Yes, correct.
Okay, is that visible? I just want to go onto full screen.
Yes, it is visible. I'm just waiting for full screen. Perfect. It's on full screen now.
Okay. And I just want to move this to the side. And do that. So welcome again to the Disability Equality Training Session. And I really hope that, like I've said, you take away something from this session today. We are going to cover a couple of things, and I'm going to start with a video clip just to get your mindset in the right way, and then I'm going to ask a question after this video clip. And if you can just confirm if there's audio on your side, please.
There is audio. Thank you.
Thank you.
What an absolutely beautiful day in Camps Bay. Unfortunately, a place I don't often visit because of the fact that it's not as accessible as you would like it to be, although I think they did make a lot of effort. I live 5 minutes from here in Sea Point. There's a nice far walkway that you can enjoy in Sea Point. When I drove into Camps Bay today, I was lucky enough to see an open wheelchair parking spot. It's not something you see often. Parking is a bit of an issue in Camps Bay. A lot of people come here when you have beautiful days. The one thing with the parking is that you have to get out of your car in the road. If that is the way you get out of your car. A lot of people get out of their car different ways when you're in a wheelchair. I get out on my right, and you've got to now check what kind of traffic is coming down the road, so you're not in the way of a car coming past you. So that's a bit of an issue. You'd like to have some more space. You can't give a wheelchair parking the same amount of space as every other car. Then you get here to this lovely area where you would like to enjoy the sun and the surf with everybody else, but the walkway doesn't go all the way. You've got to cross onto grass, which is as you know, a bit of a disaster when it comes to a wheelchair. By these steps, this is a perfect place to put a deck where people in wheelchairs can also move closer to the water, maybe enjoy the beach in their own way with friends without making everybody else sit on the step or sit on the grass. The wheelchair toilets is quite far from here. You've got to get onto the sidewalk, go all the way there. So it's a bit too far. Plus, if you want to go for a swim, you can't really take a shower here. So the resources are limited when it comes to wheelchair users in this area. As I say, I don't come here often. I feel slightly intimidated because the restaurants aren't really that accessible. There's always a couple of steps in front of the restaurant itself, which makes you feel a bit excluded from the rest of the people, seeing that this is supposed to be my hood. We're at the wheelchair accessible toilets down a ramp that is okay if you're coming down, although you've got to check yourself right here at the end. If your wheels get stuck, you are going to fall forward. Getting back up is going to be a big issue. I'm nice and strong with some good stomach muscles. Getting up is difficult for me. I can't see any paraplegic or quadriplegic for that matter getting up here on their own, or maybe someone who's frail. It's going to be very, very tough for them. As usual, the wheelchair toilets are locked. I know it's for a reason, so that other people don't abuse the toilet, but it does make it very difficult if you're in a hurry to get to the loo and you get here and it's locked and you don't know where to find the key. There's no sign that says there is an office or where the office is, or that you need to get the keys from that office.
Oh my jene, wat was hierin? Ja, dat was nie manier wat ek self ek kon net die aanloop vat. Kyk. Ek weet nie of iemand veronderstel is om die toilet te gebruik nie. Daar's geen manier dat iemand sommer daar aankom nie. Die oprit is hopeloos styl. Jy sal elke keer iemand moet hê wat jou instoot. Dit my baie pla, want ek is 'n baie onafhanklike mens. Maar dit is fyn, hierdie is 'n disaster van my kant. Dit is jy kan nie die deur oop. You can't get in if the door is locked. And you can't open the door once you're up this landing. And you can't unlock the door if you're not there. So it means someone has to come unlock it for you. And then you've got to charge up to get up and someone's going to push you in. Might as well have steps. Very unfortunate. Getting down, can't go down. Normally you've got to wheelie to get down. Otherwise you can fall forward.
So after you've seen that video clip, is there any comments or thoughts that you would like to share? So what I was trying to do with this video clip is to show you one impairment and what one design fault can result to. So Martelies is a woman that's very strong. So she was able to use that accessible toilet, but if it was somebody else with another type of disability, most likely not. But that was just to show you what is the reality out there. So there is a document called the White Paper on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities that was signed by our Parliament in December 2015, the 9th of December. And that white paper is going to become the Disability Act of South Africa. So my whole presentation and our work as the National Council is based on the content of the white paper, and it's also in alignment with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So I only took the definitions out of the white paper because that is the crux of the document, but I will also share the link afterwards, and then you can download the document if you want to go through that, because that is the driving force behind everything that government is doing currently in South Africa. So now I'm going to maybe confuse you a little bit with definitions. So the first one that I want to speak about is impairment. Before I do that, I forgot to ask this question. In your work environment in the shelters, or if you go out, I don't know if you do outside visits as well, how many of you encounter persons with disabilities or have worked with persons with disabilities? Everybody still there?
Also here.
Okay.
Any
So,
comments, anyone?
yeah,
You can
just
put
for
it in the
interest.
chat if you're not comfortable talking.
That's fine. Okay, so as we go along, you can just mention if you have worked with a person with a disability in the past. So according to the white paper, impairment is a perceived or actual feature in the person's body. So I'm not going to read that whole sentence. So for example, I've got mild hearing loss. That's my impairment. I can do nothing about it. And I can function quite normal. And I know normal is a word that you can't really define in the right environment. So your impairment is your physical condition that will have an impact on your life depending on what barriers there is going to be. So if it's a person with a mobility impairment, it will be under physical. So there's 5 impairments: physical, sensory, intellectual, psychosocial. Very important, the word mental has been removed, and then neurological impairments have been added. Anybody wants to try to give an example of a physical impairment? I've just mentioned one. So the one I mentioned is a person, for example, with quadriplegia. Paraplegia would also be physical. Then you've got sensory impairments. That would be hearing loss, vision impairments. Then intellectual would be, for example, Down syndrome. Psychosocial would be an example, bipolar. And neurological that was added would be something like MS, epilepsy, anything that's affecting your nerves and your brain. Now comes the disability definition. So what do you think if you hear the word disability? Normally you think about a person in a wheelchair, accessible toilet, accessible parking, and that is that. But now we are doing it in another way. So we are saying, okay, we've got an impairment. Your impairment is you are a person with a physical impairment and you are a person that's using a wheelchair. But now, disability is only imposed by society when a person with one of those impairments that I've mentioned is denied access to full participation in all aspects of life, and when society fails to uphold the rights and specific needs of individuals with impairments. So in other words, let me take myself as an example again. I told you now I can function quite well, but as soon as I'm in an environment where there is kettles boiling and aircons on and people speaking in an open plan office, then I become a person with a disability because the environment is the disabling factor. The same with a person using a mobility device. If they have access to building, access to anything, they are not a person with a disability. They only become a person with a disability as soon as their freedom of movement is impaired. So, for example, if there is steps or if there is not provided for a parking at the building. I don't know if it makes sense the way that I've explained it, the difference between impairment and disability. Is there any questions between the two? I know it's a new way of thinking about disability.
Haritani,
Yes.
just to check, I actually was just thinking that I like the way that you simplify it. So I just want to make sure that I'm hearing you correctly. So in essence, impairment is the concern that the person is having to deal with or
Yes.
concerned with. But when the concern becomes almost, I almost want to say structural, that's not within their control,
Correct.
that's then disability. Am I getting it right?
Absolutely correct. And there is 5 impairments. I've mentioned them. And what you are saying now, we call it the 4 barriers. So it's not only the physical built environment. So I'm going to read this paragraph. Persons with disabilities include those who have perceived and or actual physical, psychosocial, intellectual, neurological, and or sensory impairments. That's the impairments. Here comes the important part. As a result of various attitudes, attitude can be a barrier. Attitude can make a person with impairment become a person with a disability if your attitude to them is not correct. So that is why you are here today, to learn more about disability. Communication is another one. If you don't know how to communicate with a person with a certain impairment. Physical and information barriers. It doesn't help you give a document to my colleague Fani in font size 8 and he can't read it because it's too small. So that is making him a person with a disability. So it's hindering a person to participate fully and effectively in society on an equal basis with others. So that is, in essence, what you have just mentioned. So we are speaking and we are underpinning the white paper and our work on the social model of disability. So in other words, we are saying we do not want to fix a person with an impairment. There's nothing wrong with them. You need to fix the attitudes of able-bodied people. You need to fix the environment. You need to educate yourself. You need to be sensitive to the needs of persons with various impairments, or else you're going to exclude them from the mainstream and the community, and that we do not want. We do acknowledge the medical model as well, but I'll get there now. So here is now a very difficult exercise that you need to solve for me. Based on what I've just said. So I've got a box there. It's made out of, let's say it's plastic, and there's a little round hole at the top, and then we've got a star, a gold star made out of, let's say it's foil. So how would you put that star into the box? And there's no wrong answers. Anybody want to take a chance? So remember what we have just discussed, and then what you would do to get that star into the box.
Now we have a comment from Sister Celeste. She says, change the shape of the entry point.
Great. Excellent. Thank you for that comment. So I'm going to carry on. A lot of people that we do this training with are saying, just roll the star in a ball form and then you put it in the box. But what is happening with the star if you do that? Are you changing it?
You're changing the form of the shape of the sky to something that it's not.
Exactly. So what we were saying about persons with impairments, that we do not want to change them, is rather change the environment or the attitude. So because I mentioned the box is made out of plastic, the easiest way would be to cut open the top part, and that is where I think it was Celeste that said change the entry point. And you can see there's a box that's got cylinders, stars, pyramids, blocks, a diverse community inside the box. We do not want to change the star into another shape, and we want to have inclusion. So I mentioned that we still acknowledge the medical model, and there will always be a need for medical care, for hospitalization, for rehabilitation, for professional help, social work services. That all is still there, and it's still important. But we are focusing, and we are saying with the social model, focus on the inclusion, on the attitude, the human rights, the politics, the environment, social change. And it is an individual and collective responsibility. Not only our responsibility, but you are attending this session today to make yourselves more knowledgeable. So we also ask you to help us to create awareness about what you are learning today. So on the left-hand side, I've got a person using a wheelchair with the arrows focusing to the person, and that was the medical model which was followed pre-1994, where they were saying, if I say they, the medical society, fix the person, but then we say no. On the social model on the right-hand side, you need to look at all the barriers that is making a person with impairment, a person with a disability, and then the blue arrows pointing inwards is the bit of the medical model that's still required and will never fall out of the picture, like I've mentioned, social services, rehabilitation, medical care, etc. So this slide, at the bottom left, you will see it says exclusion, and it's a circle with green dots, and then outside you've got the blue and the black and the yellow dots. So that was pre-1994. Even worse so for persons with disabilities. Then we moved to segregation, and what happened there was we still have the big circle with the green dots, and then you've got the small circle with the other colors, meaning there's still separation. Then a couple of years ago, government came up, and I know people still use this word, as integration. But now you can see what is the difference between integration and inclusion that is at the top. So if we go back to integration, all that happened was you took that circle from segregation and you put it inside the big circle, but it's still not part of the bigger population. They are still separate. So we are now including persons with impairments in all aspects of life in a diverse South Africa, hence inclusion at the top. All the colors representing our nation, and there's no discrimination. That is the dream that we know will be happening, and we are all working to that. And just another example, on the left-hand side, you've got, well, left and right-hand side, you've got two trees. You've got three persons standing on boxes. On the left-hand side, we say, fine, let's give equality, and we give a box to each person so that they can pick an apple from a tree, but the boxes are all the same size. So what's happening there is that the shorter person will not reach the apple. So it's not helping him or her in any way. If you move to the right-hand side, equity, you give a box according to the person's height so that they have equal opportunities in picking the apple from the tree. So short box for the tallest person and the higher box for the shorter person. Now, is there a problem in this picture? Again, based on what we have just discussed. Or do you think there is a problem? Let me put it that way. So we've got a lady using a wheelchair, smiling, hands in the air. She's on a pathway. Do you think there's anything wrong with this? Okay, let me go to the next one. What is your answer now?
Anybody that want to give it a go? Try.
Danny or Fanny, I'm sorry, feels like I'm talking too much, but
No,
No, not at all. Not at all.
I'm just checking because the first picture, yeah, that one, I was looking at it and thinking maybe it's a catch question. But
no.
then I was wondering, I don't know if she has enough support for her back because I can't see the back of her wheelchair. I don't know. I'm assuming that she has good. I'm not very familiar with the terminology, sorry, so I'm just going to use my own
No,
words.
That's fine.
I'm assuming that she must have a relative sense of muscle tone, or muscle capacity because she's raised and smiling, so her upper
Yes.
body strength is okay, so she doesn't necessarily need I'm gonna call it almost like a seatbelt kind of a thing.
Yes.
But I'm depending on the posturing or structuring of the chair. The chair looks quite comfortable. She looks happy, so I don't
Yeah.
think it doesn't.
And
For me, I was like, there must be a catch to this picture, but it doesn't look like there's a problem in this one.
and you are right, there was a catch, and the reason I've put this is there's no barriers in front of her. That's why she's happy. She can use the parkway like anybody else. So I was trying for you to not focus on the wheelchair as such, but the person and the fact that she is in a position to be independent.
Yeah, okay.
And then if you go to that one,
I can't see her face, but I mean, immediately I'm concerned, like, how's she gonna get up there without assistance?
exactly.
And then immediately just reflecting on your commentary on the previous one is, I'm gonna try to use the terms you're teaching us, Dani.
Yes.
It's an impairment becoming a disability because structurally we are challenging her independence.
Correct. And that was the purpose of this photo, to show you that she's got a proper wheelchair. Everything is fine until she came around the corner and all of a sudden there's steps, and now the steps is making her a person with a disability, because why? She's losing her independence and her dignity. So that is just the point that I wanted to bring over with these two photos. But quite correct what you were saying. Thank you so much for that. There's another video I want to show you. This one is a little bit longer. It might be a bit over the top, but that is designed to be like that. And then afterwards, if you want to just comment on certain things in the video that I'm going to show now, and then again, if you can just confirm the audio, please.
Sorry, Johnny, before you play the video.
Okay, let me just pause. Yes.
With the first picture, the first question you ask, is there a problem there?
Yes.
Instantly in my mind, I didn't see a problem. And that was, I agree with the speaker that just spoke before us. That was, were you trying to trick us with that question? But then as a person, and I'd say we are here to learn. I
Yes.
then found problems. I then got
Yes.
concerned that I think there's a guy behind there on the sidewalk.
Yes.
That's what we expect people with disabilities, people with impairments to be
Yes.
on the sidewalk. I think goes
Yes.
back with those segregation, integration that you mentioned.
Yes.
I'm concerned about what if a car comes behind her, but my focus was not on the fact that she's so free, she looks happy, she's not
Yes.
limited. But now we, as I'd say, I don't want to say abled people, are concerned
Correct.
about why
Correct.
is she not sticking to that sidewalk where she is going to be safe, but her
Yes.
safety is not what we might think she needs.
Yes. Okay.
And then
No. Yes.
with the second picture, no, there was nothing for me apart then with that disability and impairment definitions you gave us, where now
Yes.
the disability because she's not as independent as she would like to be because then of the barriers or physical
Correct.
that are
Correct.
now
Correct.
to her.
Thank you for that. Yes, correct. And every time I do this presentation, I change the photos because sometimes I like to be a bit sneaky and make it more difficult. Okay, so I'm going to go to the video again. And here we go.
The Disability Rights Commission presents
Is it audible?
a Winkle Films production, a Matthew Parkhill film. Talk in washed out colours at board meetings in progress.
Good. A long, productive discussion. Well, that just about wraps it up.
Not quite. There's the new Disability Discrimination Act.
The blonde woman gives her colleagues a cool smile.
I think it's an excellent idea.
Yeah, me too.
Commendable. About time, that's what I say.
Absolutely, right.
Then we support it. Good.
No, you see, the act's already come into effect. We have to decide what we're going to do about it.
Do.
The chairman sits back down. Robert, a smartly dressed young man, gulps down some water.
Well, we do whatever the law requires us to do. Hearing aids, ramps, I don't know. Just keep the costs down. Now, don't get me wrong. My cousin's disabled. I know what it's like for them. But it's crazy to spend more than we have to. I mean, do we even have any disabled people working here, huh? Well, I'm not saying we don't do our bit. Just don't go overboard, that's all.
Those ramps make damn good PR.
He's got a point. Robert, why don't you check out what the competition's doing? I don't want us losing out in the image stakes. Make some recommendations. We'll meet up day after tomorrow. Discuss it. Talk some more.
The chairman gets up to leave, and as other colleagues file out, Robert sidles up to the blonde.
I got the interview. Tomorrow.
So you're leaving us?
Time for a change.
In a street, he's on his mobile.
Of course we're still on for tomorrow night. Finally get to see what you look like. Well, I hope you're not disappointed too.
At home, he puts down his briefcase and logs onto his PC. Next to his computer, a half-full bottle of whiskey. He hunches his back wearily and pours himself some whiskey into a china mug. And some more. He's asleep, his head resting on his desk. His PC screen starts to spit and flash, blurry images in the center of a blue pixelated mass, moving lips, the chairman, the woman. Robert in full color comes to. He rubs his eyes and blearily peers at his watch. He staggers to his feet and stands in front of a mirror.
I suppose I'm looking for a change. To broaden my horizons, to see what it's like from a different experience. Well, I want this job, I want this job. To see what it's like from a different point of view. You can do it. Where's your mum when you need her? To see what it's like from a different point of view.
After several changes of shirt, he emerges from his front door in a grey suit and purple shirt, carrying his briefcase. It's raining and the streets are oddly empty. As he struggles to put up his umbrella, two women come along. The taller one, in a pink jacket and beret, comes up to Robert, signing. "Do you need any help?" He looks at her, uncomprehending. She signs some more, scowls at him as if he were daft, then backs off, rejoining her companion, leaving Robert looking bemused.
Taxi!
With briefcase over his head, he stares as empty cabs ignore him.
Sam, come on!
Next to their cab lights, a disabled sign. He checks his watch and makes a run for it, arriving at a building with a rain-spattered glass lift and no obvious way of getting in. Soaked to the skin, he presses a bell for assistance. In the slow-moving lift, a dark-haired lift attendant addresses him.
I'd just like to say, I think you're very brave.
The lift man with short arms smiles reassuringly at Robert. Inside the building, Robert turns a corner, wiping his white face, and sees a brunette behind a desk. Her left arm stops at her elbow.
Hi, I'm Robert Kesey. I'm here for the...
For the interview?
Yeah, sorry I'm late. I couldn't...
I'm sure that's okay.
Taxi.
She hands him a form. He stares at it blankly. It's in Braille.
Sorry, I can't
Oh,
read.
they shouldn't be long.
No, but I just
You're
can't...
welcome.
He marches into the interview room. A man in a dark suit with sightless eyes turns to his balding neighbour.
What's going on? He's able-bodied.
The neighbour and the young man next to him have cerebral palsy. Beyond them, a smiling woman in a wheelchair.
How good of you to come.
Robert hesitates.
Why don't you take a seat? Now, take as much time as you need.
The panel waved to Robert to come closer, but exchanged doubtful looks to each other. Back in the glass-fronted lift.
Say, I had a friend who had all his limbs once. It's great.
Robert on his mobile by a bus stop.
Oh, no, I didn't get it. I mean, it's as if they weren't even listening to me. I don't know. Listen, I've got to go. I'll tell you about it later, okay? Yeah, 8 o'clock. I'm wearing a light grey suit, purple shirt, burgundy tie. Okay, then. Bye.
Sorry, mate, wheelchairs only.
What?
Well, I don't make the rules.
Robert backs away from the bus, making way for 2 men in wheelchairs.
Sorry.
He comes into a restaurant. The maitre d' looks at him with distaste.
Look what's just walked in.
Hi, I have a reservation.
Do you, sir?
Sorry, Robert Kesey, 8 o'clock.
Look at him.
Right. Well,
Robert points to his name in the book.
What's he doing here?
Just there.
oh, of course. Now, sir, do you have anyone with you
Sorry?
to help you, sir?
I'm meeting someone.
Oh, you're meeting someone. Right. Well, well, this way then, sir.
The maitre d' on crutches leads the way, waits by an unoccupied laid table, then moves on towards the back of the restaurant.
Outrageous.
I'm coming here again. A bit of a surprise at a place like this.
You'd think they would have told us at the door. Oh, imagine if Paul hits home embarrassing. Oh my God. What's he doing?
Well, don't.
2 deaf people sign to each other.
Where are they going to put him?
Can't believe they let them out.
Robert makes his way past the other tables. The maitre d' points to one by the kitchen door with a casual jerk of his head. Sitting down, Robert stares into his whiskey. From across the table, a young blonde woman looks him up and down.
Robert?
Olivia.
Robert smiles brightly at Olivia, who's in a wheelchair. Time passes awkwardly as staff go in and out of the kitchen doors. Robert's still on the whiskey. The maitre d' limps by.
It's not that I don't like you.
No.
It's just, I didn't expect you to be, you know.
Right.
Not that it matters. I mean, I'm not prejudiced. I've got a cousin who's...
Of course. Look, I was wondering, what if we just tried...
In a crowd, disabled people are swaying to the music. A man in a vest and combats flips his wheelchair. Another lad gropes a girl in a slinky gold dress. She slaps him. At the bar, a short-haired girl in a wheelchair ruffles Robert's hair.
mate. I think it's really nice that you've got friends who bring you out clubbing like this.
Embarrassed, he turns away from the girl, and carrying 2 bottles of beer and 2 shorts, he makes his way past 2 signing clubbers.
Maybe he needs some help. It's something I'd like to see an awful lot more often happening. Good on you,
People smile at him in a kindly way.
That's really great, isn't it?
Olivia is unsmiling as she and Robert sit at their low table. Time passes awkwardly. He takes off his jacket, drums his fingers on his chin. She looks at her watch. With sudden resolve, Robert hands over her drink as he raises his glass to her with a smile. She looks at him steadily, crinkles her nose as if to say, "What have I got to lose?" and downs her drink in one. As they feel the burn, they smile at each other. They're on the dance floor with all the other clubbers, and they're having a good time.
I've always wanted to know, are you people capable of having sex?
Robert, naked, wakes up with a start. As he gets his breath back, he notices a wheelchair by the side of the bed. Panicking, he feels his legs through the bed cover. He remembers Olivia on top of him. He turns his head and sees her sleeping in the bed next to him. He smiles. The computer screen starts flashing. He climbs out of bed and switches it off. The pink spitting light fades to black.
We just need time to
Next day at the meeting in washed out colours.
Good. Right. This Disability Act. Robert, let's talk about your findings.
Robert, in his smart executive suit, carefully looks from one colleague to another as they watch him expectantly. He takes a deep breath.
You know what? Let's not talk about it.
Actions louder than words.
And there you've got the video. Is there anybody that would like to make a comment, again, based on what we have discussed today? It's basically just the reverse side of a person waking up and being a person with impairment and the experience. So I'm just going to go through one or two of the clips. So that first one, where Robert encountered the ladies that was using sign language, that is an information or communication barrier. The taxi, of course, was again a barrier because it was only used by persons using wheelchairs. There's a barrier to the entrance. Again, the receptionist, her attitude was not good at all. And then the Braille document that she gave Robert, that is an example of information that is not accessible. So I'm not going to go through all of them. I think you understood what I tried to achieve with this video. Is there any questions before we go to the next portion, or any comments?
No comments, thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to, because Daphne have joined us, I'm going to just quickly change the proceedings. I'm going to go to terminology now, and then when Dylan is here, then he will do the reasonable accommodation like he said in the morning. So I'm just going to jump through the first slide, the correct terminology. And Daphne, you have not introduced yourself yet. I'm just going to switch on the camera so that you can see Daphne.
Good. Is it still morning? I'm so sorry. Good morning, everyone. My name is Daphne Twala, and I am on the Casual Day online shop, but I also help with the terminologies for this session. So this is the terminologies we use or we should use when speaking of or speaking to persons with disabilities. These are the things you should avoid saying when speaking to or speaking about persons with disabilities. So we do not say a person is physically challenged or differently abled. We do not say a person is living with a disability, but we say persons with disabilities because we put the person first before their impairments. And we also say disabled people. So we don't say a person is suffering from disability or from cerebral palsy because that person is not always in pain. So we say persons with cerebral palsy. We don't say persons who are affiliated with cerebral palsy or person is a victim of cerebral palsy. So we use the word a person who uses a wheelchair or a wheelchair user instead of wheelchair bound because the person doesn't necessarily make everything on their wheelchair. They only use wheelchairs for mobility purposes. We also do not say a person is handicapped. We do not say a person is crippled. We do not say a person is differently abled, physically or mentally challenged, but we say persons with disabilities or a disability. So when you say a person is handicapped, it sounds like you're saying a person comes with a cap in hand to you begging for money or begging for anything else. We are not beggars. We're just asking to be referred to as persons with disabilities. The same way it goes to persons with or persons who are able-bodied. We do not say that you are normal or you are whole, because then it means that I am abnormal. So you should refer to yourselves as persons without disabilities or able-bodied persons. You should avoid saying a patient or invalid. You should rather say a client or a customer. The same goes with persons who have HIV and AIDS. We do not say that person is an HIV and AIDS victim or a person is diabetic, but we say persons with HIV and AIDS and persons with diabetes because we still put the person first. There are 4 categories of being deaf. There's a person who was born deaf, which the D is written as a capital letter, and that person makes use of sign language as their means of communication. We have persons who are hard of hearing, who are persons that is referred to persons who are audiologically deaf and uses a spoken language or a South African sign language as means of communication. We have deaf written with a lower D, which refers to a person with a total hearing loss. They may not be using sign language as their medium means of communication. However, they do use other means of communication like your speech and lip reading, your cochlear implants, and etc. We have hearing impaired, which refers to persons with varying degrees of hearing loss. They also may not use sign language as their primary means of communication. They also use other assistive devices for hearing or hearing technologies. I am a person born with a congenital disability. I have 3 fingers in each hand, so I'm not a person who is deformed. I am not a birth defect. I'm just a person with a congenital disability. We also have persons born without arms. We are not deformed. We are not birth defects. You should avoid saying a person is a Mongol or cerebral palsied or spastic or epileptic, mentally retarded, insane, or brain damaged, but you should rather say persons with Down syndrome, persons with cerebral palsy, persons with epilepsy, persons with an intellectual disability, a person with a psychiatric disability, persons with cognitive disabilities, or persons with learning disabilities. You should avoid saying that a person is a midget or a short circus person, but it's persons with dwarfism, persons of a short stature, or little people. But you should rather ask a person first how they would like to be referred as, and I promise you they will tell you their names. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daphne. Anybody who wants to ask Daphne any questions, or is anything here something that you do not agree with? So
No.
again, the
Questions.
terminology that we are using is the terminology that's been used in the white paper and the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. But if you do speak to a person with impairment and they insist on being called, let's say, for example, differently abled, don't go into an argument with that person. It's his or her choice. So like Daphne said, if you are unsure, you can ask the person and they can guide you in what is the correct way they would like to be addressed. Any questions?
Nothing in the chat. Thank you, Danny. Oh,
Okay.
sorry, we've just got one now.
Yes, thank you.
Oh no, sorry, it's a private message. Sorry, it's not for the
Okay,
chat.
no
Thank you.
problem at all. But we will share this with you. I know it's a lot of information, and there's no way that one person can remember all of this. So we will share it, and then you can just refer back to the terminology. But thank you, Daphne, for joining us for this part. Thanks a lot. So I'm going to ask Dylan now to speak about reasonable accommodation, specifically not in this case in the workplace, but in your setup where you are working with shelters, in shelters, and what is the difference between reasonable accommodation and accessibility? And there's a big difference between the two. So Dylan will just speak about his experience, and maybe hopefully you will understand the term reasonable accommodation a bit better. Specifically, if you work with a person with an impairment in your environment, or if you are also, remember now, you must look also at staff, and a lot of staff do not disclose their impairments because they are afraid of discrimination. And I'm going to speak about invisible impairments also just now, but I'm going to hand over to Dylan.
Morning again, everyone. Just like I introduced myself previously, my name is Dylan Mashele. I was born with a condition which is called juvenile glaucoma. So juvenile glaucoma is an eye condition that normally affects children from birth. You are lucky as a parent to discover it at an early stage, and then you are unfortunate as a parent to discover it at the later stage, because juvenile glaucoma symptoms start showing at the later stage. Mine started showing while I was doing grade 10. We started seeing the symptoms of juvenile glaucoma. Then I was taken to different doctors, eye specialists, hoping that they will do justice to my eyes. Unfortunately, they caused more damage because when I went to the last hospital, they were supposed to do a surgery. They were supposed to start with my right eye because the right eye was not damaged compared to the left eye. So they were supposed to start with the eye which was not damaged, so that the damaged eye shouldn't cause more harm to the eye that had a better vision. So in my case, it was a vice versa. Then they, at the later stage, they've seen that they saw that they've made a mistake with starting with the right eye instead of the left eye. They tried to recorrect the error, and by then it was a bit late. So I had to go to theater like 4 or 5 times while they were busy trying to fix the error that they started with. That led into me experiencing currently vision deterioration time and again because of that mistake that they made. Okay, it's fine. I couldn't go back to the mainstream school because my vision was no longer sufficient to that extent that it would allow me to cope in a mainstream school. So I had to convert to an Alson school, which was a school that was catering and accommodating children or learners with low vision. The change was extremely difficult for me because I had to adjust into learning new ways of coping and learning in that sense. One, I had to make use of my hands quite often because as persons with low vision, you need to read and write using your hands in a context that you type, in this case, using Braille, and you read Braille documents because your eyes are no longer sufficient to that extent that they can see what is written on the green board. Let me give you this background. When it comes to persons with low vision, we've got 3 categories. We've got B1, B2, and B3. So B1 are totally blind persons that make use of guide dogs and Braille document in most cases. Then B2, they are partially sighted people that always use canes. Others do use guide dogs, but then the partially sighted people prefer using cane, a white cane, and they read large font document. They also make use of screen readers. Screen reader is a software that read everything that's in your computer or that is in your desktop or your laptop. So any written document it reads for you. It is only failing to give a description of graphics or drawings. Then B3s are persons that can only see, that has light perception. So they're able to follow shadow. They cannot see who's greeting them, but then because persons with low vision or blind people are very clever, they can grasp that they are able to recall the voices of people. So B3s, they only have light perception and they're able to follow the shadow. So the biggest mistake that people make when it comes to blind people, one, they classify everyone who's blind and they tend to think that 2 of persons that are visually impaired require the same assistance. And that's not always the case. We can be both partially sighted, falling under the category of B2, but not require the same assistance. If I can give you a practical example, I use font size 22 and X person make use of size 28, font size 28, but we are both falling under the category of B2. So what we normally tell people that we do this training, it's that never assume that because all of them are B2 or are partially sighted or are totally blind, they need Braille document, and then partially sighted, one size fit them all. That's not always the case. The best way to do it is to ask them which font size work for you. Okay, academically, I pushed from high school. Then from high school, I went to varsity. Then from varsity, I was exposed to the work environment. High school, it was much easier, and varsity, it was much easier because Braille document will be provided. You will find a disability unit where they assist persons with disabilities. I was fortunate in the university that I went to, we had blind lab where you will take your assignment and then they'll Braille it for you if you're using Braille. And then if you're partially sighted, and then you'll ask, they will give you font size that you would have gave them for your assignment and for your project and stuff like that. So hence I'm saying it was much easier in high school and varsity. Things started to be complicated in the work context, where I started working, reasonable accommodation was not provided compared to high school and varsity. One, as a person with a low vision, when I need to work, I need to have a specific reasonable accommodation. In this sense, I need to have a Zoom text keyboard. I need to have a big screen. The lighting must be very good. The background of my office space, it shouldn't have lighting. So at work where I started working, such thing was not provided for me. I was given a standard keyboard to work with. All documents that I was supposed to work with, it was a small printed document, and it was a problem for me because I use big font document as a person with a low vision. They would make changes. They will make changes in the office space without telling me, because you need to remember. You need to remember this as a person who has a low vision. Whenever they change furniture in the office space, they need to consult us. They need to alert us. They need to say to us that, Dylan, the couch that was in the reception facing the north will be changed. They will put a table there, because normally we use permanent marks as objects that assist us to navigate through the office space. Life was difficult there. I never had a reason to wake up and go to work because reasonable accommodation was not provided for me. It went on to an extent that I was retrenched because I couldn't perform at my level best. And the host employer forgot that they did not provide reasonable accommodation. In my exit interview, I was asked why was I not performing, because my results are very good and I performed well in my interview. Then when I told them that reasonable accommodation was not provided, they said I didn't state it at my application form, whereas my CV stated very well that I'm partially sighted and I make use of large font document. Okay, it's fine. I had to go because I was retrenched because of those reasons. Then I started working at the National Council of and for Persons with Disabilities. First thing that they did, it was to sensitize the staff about reasonable accommodation, how to work with a person with a low vision, equipment, resources that that person with a low vision needs. I was asked about them, and then I was provided those documents. I was provided the resources. I was provided resources. Time and again, they remind my fellow colleague about the importance of reasonable accommodation for someone who's partially sighted. So whenever there's a new employee hired in our office, first induction with that particular person, it's DET training, so that they would know that you do not just leave boxes hanging around. And whenever there are maintenance guy, there's maintenance people, there's someone who's assigned specifically for that task to tell that particular person that you do not just leave cables hanging around, you do not just leave your work equipment hanging around, because there are persons with low vision. Let me make this disclaimer. We are two in our office. So this is a practical example to show you that as much as we are two, Dylan and Fanny, they don't need the same resources. They don't need the same assistance. They don't require the same font size. Fanny might make use of a screen reader, and I don't make use of the screen reader. I might require a liquid level indicator, and Fanny might not require a liquid level indicator. As much as both of us need a signature guide, it's a device that assists persons that are blind to sign on that specific line. It's to avoid being carried by hand, being finger pointed where to sign, because that takes away the sense of dignity when someone points through a finger and says sign here and stuff like that. Imagine you are in the bank and then everyone's trying to assist you as to trying to show you where to sign. But then if we have that device, which is called signature guide, it's much easier. They just put it where I'm supposed to sign, then I'll just put my signature. So work with persons with disabilities, specifically persons with low vision, because many host employers tend to think that having a blind person or someone who's partially sighted, it's a bit expensive. Their resources are much expensive. That is not the case at all the time, because there are systems that we can put in hand and that can assist us as persons with low vision to work at our level best.
Thank you, Dylan. And is there any questions you would like to ask Dylan or clarity in what he just explained? No comments from your side.
Sorry, Danny,
No.
I'm trying to raise my hand. Sorry, Melanie.
Thank you.
I thank you so much for your to Daphne as well on terminology. I actually took a pic or two while you were talking, Daphne, and to Dylan now as well. Sorry. I was just wondering, and maybe we're going to cover it a bit later on. So I had two questions that came up now, Dylan, and I hope that it's not insensitively put, but I'm loving how you're teaching on reasonable accommodation, and just giving some pointers in terms of how to manage it in different ways and platforms. And so for us in shelters, I'm thinking, you know, we're very fortunate that our social auxiliary worker has worked in the sector of persons with disabilities in different spaces. And so she's quite adept at doing things like a sensitization session with the residents, especially when we have things that are changing and new and different. So I also just made like those little commentary notes for me and us and on our side. What I wanted to check, Dylan, is would you say that being able to be mindful, because I feel that that's really what I want to thank you for, is a sense of mindfulness around just, you know, we say slowing things down a bit to be able to see things from the client's perspective. Would you say that reasonable accommodation is something that could fit under something like occupational health and safety?
Yes, that's a perfect fit in terms of, that's a perfect fit also in the occupational health. Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously not just in a shelter setting or a residential facility, it would obviously extend further than an employer-employee sort of relationship in terms of, because I'm just, as I was listening to you, I'm thinking, you know, and I think perhaps it's more prevalent in a corporate setting that you have considerations for how to ensure, and I think you were saying something when you were talking about your experience of studying and varsity, that you were able to perform at peak performance because your specific needs were being met or catered for or thought of, or, you know, there were alternative solutions or packaging, etc. So, you know, I was just thinking that sounds like occupational health and safety to me, but I just wanted to be sensitive about checking whether that would be fair to say it that way. And then obviously then in the shelter setting or residential facility setting, it then just extends a little bit further than employer-employee relationship and into the, you know, to the beneficiary and accommodating them. And I'm only using the word them in terms of staff versus, you know, a client or a customer, so different terminologies. But I'm sure there's, you know, in any service industry, there would be a level of how to be accommodating. And then I don't know if it would fit into you or something to flag and hold over, is just a keen interest then. And I know that in your agenda for the training, there is a component and it might come up there, but just you referenced, Dylan, costing and how, you know, where one is needing to be sensitive around persons with disabilities and for the purpose and principle of inclusion around things like devices. I mean, I sometimes hear words like use some words now that I'm very unfamiliar with. Ubuntu would be probably, our social auxiliary worker might be more adept at it because of our exposure. You know, to learn about these things and to be mindful of being able to offer it. How does one tap into costing models or specific relationships, if I can call it that way? Because of how costly it could get, especially when one speaks around devices, etc. I mean, I think infrastructure and structure is a different component of it, and I think you are going to maybe touch that later on. So maybe that's just to park. I don't know, Dylan.
Okay, so Danny will cover that aspect later on.
Oh, thank you.
But thank you so much for asking that question.
No problem. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so nothing else for Dylan? Thanks again, Dylan. We really appreciate your contribution always. So I'm just going to add on to what you have just asked now. because you can see the slide is still on reasonable accommodation. So in essence, if you have the perfect designed, accessible, let's say shelter in your case now, and there is a client with an impairment coming to your shelter, or if you have a employee, my apologies, with an impairment, maybe volunteering at the shelter or working at the shelter, then you will always have reasonable accommodation. So it doesn't mean if your facility is accessible, reasonable accommodation is going to fall away. That will never ever be the case. Each person, like Dylan have said, will have different needs and will have different ways in how they would like to be reasonably accommodated. Now, here lies the thing. Reasonable accommodation must go both ways. It must be reasonable for the employee and the employer, and in your case, then for the client as well. And reasonable accommodation can easily be abused if you don't monitor it, because a lot of people will take chances. I mean, we've been in this field for many years, and we've got so many inquiries about people, companies or organizations or NPOs coming to us saying, but what is reasonable? To what extent are you going to give somebody every Monday off because of the fact that they are taking medication for a certain medical condition that they have, and it's making them tired and they are late for work, etc. So that is a discussion that you will have to have with both parties and sort that out. And then coming to the health and safety aspect, and I'm going to touch on that. I've got universal design and accessibility also as bullet points. So I'm going to speak to that, or just mention that when I get to those points. We do have another presentation about universal design and access that covers health and safety in detail, but not so much in this disability equity training presentation, but I will be touching on that. I don't know if that is helpful, the answer that I just gave.
Yes, that's fair. Thank you. I'm not sure Sarah is speaking.
Okay. So the terminology Daphne did, I'm just going to go through that. So here we go, universal design. And again, it's out of the white paper, and that's also what we base our work on when we go and we do access audits on facilities and buildings to make sure that it's accessible for everybody. So again, I'm not going to read what's on the screen. In short, university.
I am Sibiti. There's
somebody that's not muted. We could just check, please. Thank you. So universal design, just in short, the easiest way to explain it, it's the way that you design a building, a product, a service, anything that you are going to use throughout your lifetime. Whether you are a person with an impairment or an able-bodied person, this is not only for persons with impairments. So it must be designed in such a way that you will be able to use it throughout your lifetime without any assistance. So it's focused on the broader population. It looks at things like different body sizes. It looks at things about health and safety concerns in the design aspect. Again, touching on the health and safety. Is there any trip hazards? Is the lighting efficient, like Dylan just said, for persons with low vision? And for person that reads lips, that is a person with hearing loss. I'm just going to mention a couple of examples. let's take a ATM, for example. Is an ATM designed in such a way that both a person with a vision impairment and a person using a mobility device can use it? Think also about turnstiles. When you enter a building, is that turnstile designed for somebody not only using a wheelchair, but also think of a mum pushing a pram, or somebody that's got a laptop bag and 2 other bags and not getting stuck in the turnstile. So that's all the things that you need to consider when you address universal design. And of course, with universal design, we would like to achieve universal access. And in reality, that is in how are you going to implement the universal design principles. So the best way in describing it is to remove all the barriers that we have been mentioning the whole day, to make sure that all the residents and citizens and your clients in this case and your staff members are benefiting from the services that you are rendering, and also the buildings or the facilities that you are working from. So the absence of accessibility or the denial of access is the loss of opportunities to take part in the community on an equal basis with others. Any questions? So again, I'm just saying there is a whole presentation, 3-hour presentation on universal design and access by its own. If anybody is interested in that, you can just contact or work through Miriam, perhaps, if you want more information. I will gladly assist. Any questions or clarity that I can give on universal design and universal access? Does it make sense? So we are no longer looking only at parkings and toilets for persons with impairments. We are looking at absolutely everything to make it, like I've said, usable for any person throughout their lifetime. And there are 7 principles of universal design. I'm not going to mention all of them, but now I want to see if you maybe disagree with me or not. At the bottom of the page, there is a turnstile that's wider with a wheelchair sign, and then there is 2 turnstiles that is a standard size. Would you say that's an example of universal design that I've just explained? Just focus on the bottom picture, that one with the lady facing you and then the person using the wheelchair.
I don't think it's an example of universal design. And if I heard correctly, your description of universal design, it's not specifically access to the disabled, like people living with disabilities, but it's for everyone.
Exactly. Thank you so much for that answer. So if this was an example of universal design, there would not have been a wheelchair sign, firstly. And secondly, all the turnstiles would have been the same size, the size that the person using the wheelchair is using. So that you have all the turnstiles the same size. You can use any one of them without almost the word discriminate again, to say, okay, fine, if you are a person using a mobility device, or if you are going to have a pram, you must only use that entrance. So no, this is not the example of universal design, and that's why I've put it on here. Okay, everybody happy? There's the 7 principles, and again, I'm not going to go into it, but just to go back to health and safety, you will see point number 5, principle number 5, is tolerance for error. And that is when you design something, you need to consider and minimize hazards and the adverse consequences or accidental or unintended actions. And you need to provide fail-safe features and whatever you are going to design. So the legislation, just to what we use when we do our access work, our universal design work, is of course the building standards, the white paper I've mentioned 1,000 times today, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, the PEPUDA, the Promotion of Equality and Prevention of Unfair Discrimination Act, Employment Equity Act, and then the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So that's just a couple of the legislation that we refer to. There's a lot more, and as you know, South Africa is a country with so much legislation, beautiful legislation, but we don't use it, and we are not aware of it. Invisible impairments. Can anybody tell me what you would say you understand with the term invisible impairment?
Anybody?
Okay, so on my screen, I've got a photo of people blending into each other, different colors, and there's even a person using in a wheelchair, but you do not know what impairments everybody's got on that image on your screen. So specifically after COVID, after the looting, after the flooding, the bad economy that South Africa is in, the poverty, and I'm sure that you are seeing it more and more and more also with you being working in the industry that you are and with the shelters. And the reality is that invisible disabilities or impairments is a physical, a mental or neurological condition that is not visible from the outside as easy as that. And yet you can't limit or challenge a person's movement, senses or activities. So you don't need to be, or let me put it this way, your impairment doesn't need to be visible, like if you are using a wheelchair or if you are using a hearing aid or a white cane or a walking frame or a walking stick. I can go on and on and on. So there is some examples, ADHD, fibromyalgia, dyslexia, Crohn's disease, arthritis. Are you all familiar with those? Anybody, do you know Crohn's disease as an example and why it's on a list as an invisible disability?
Sorry, Dani, we have a comment from the Lean. She says invisible impairment, chronic pain.
Just repeat, invisible impairment?
Chronic pain.
Perfect. Yes, good example. Good example. So
epilepsy is also another one.
Yes, thank you. Correct. And then I'm just going back to Crohn's disease. For those that knows Crohn's disease, it is a disease that affects your digestion, your bowels, your intestines. It's really a horrible disease, but it's controllable with medication and what you eat. But it can flare up at any time, and that person can be incapacitated for a week or two, if not longer. So it can lead to an invisible impairment. So it doesn't mean if you have Crohn's disease that it is an invisible impairment permanently. It can be intermittent. The same with arthritis. You will have flare-ups and then you will have good days. The same with fibromyalgia. One day you might have extreme pain and exhaustion, and the next day you will be much better. So it's all about how you manage your condition that you have. And just some interesting facts, because it's invisible and people don't know it. Some of the celebrities that have invisible impairments include Selena Gomez, she has lupus, Jack Osbourne, MS, Demi Lovato has bipolar, Little Wayne epilepsy, Morgan Freeman, fibromyalgia like Lady Gaga, same impairment. Richard Gere and Ben Stiller have Lyme disease. Halle Berry, diabetes. I've mentioned Lady Gaga, and now the last one, I never knew about this impairment, and so you learn every day. Celine Dion has been quite recently been diagnosed with a very rare neurological disorder called stiff person syndrome, and that is a disorder that is actually making all her muscles and tissue in her body to become rigid and stiff. They also call it the statue disease. So it's also not a very it's a horrible impairment, because it will get at the stage where you can't move anymore, you can't talk anymore, everything is locked in. So the best bit is that they chose not to speak openly about it, because they manage it. They manage the conditions on their own way. But now the thing is, most people think that you are faking it. Able-bodied people think that persons with invisible impairments is faking it. So on the left-hand side, you've got a hand, two hands, and underneath it says, just because I carry it well doesn't mean it isn't heavy. And inside it, you've got isolation, loss, joy, pain, silence, hope. Not going to mention all of those. So a lot of time you will have people saying, "Oh, you don't look like a person that's in pain," or "You are faking it," or even with me, you are pretending you can't hear me, because certain voices I can hear better than other voices, or depending on the background noise. So that is the reality with the public, and maybe also with your colleagues or family or friends, and even with your clients, that they would say that it's just pretending and it's not really a disability or an impairment. So chronic illness can be both physical and psychological. Like I've mentioned, it can be persistent, or it can occur in flare-ups or episodes. So a person with persistent chronic pain can sometimes have a good day, like I've mentioned, and be able to do more. So they overdo it, and then what happens? The next day, their condition is flaring up, increasing the symptoms, and then they are in a lot of pain and sometimes not capable of doing the work that they are supposed to do. Same with asthma. I'm sure you know a lot of people with asthma. It's not that they have asthma attacks the whole time. It can be occurring specifically when they are active, or other reasons as well. But it doesn't mean the asthma is there forever, and if you use an asthma pump, that it's like on a daily basis. It can be in certain cases only when it flares up. On the left-hand side, when you live with chronic pain, even simple tasks can be impossible, like self-care, cooking, doing laundry, washing dishes, and house cleaning. And on the right-hand side, we've got the lady with hands and feet that's in cement. That is how she feels. She can't lift them up. It's like as heavy as cement, because she is so tired and full of pain. But I want to describe it in this way. It's like if you buy a second-hand car and it's a bargain, you pay very little for the car. The kilometers on the car is very low. It's brand new, painted. The interior is great, new tires, everything, and you are happy. You buy it, and then boom, after the first month, the car breaks down, and you just discovered then the repairman is telling you that the car's engine is a total disaster, and the car actually did 700,000 kilometers and not 101,000 kilometers, and it's basically a paperweight. You can't use it. So that is what persons with invisible impairments is doing, is they are pretending that they are fine, but they are really not. And you are not going to introduce yourself as, I'm Dani and I have arthritis. You just don't do it. People don't do it. And chronic illness is considered disabling when it is debilitating enough to interfere with a person's ability to function normally. That's very important to understand. The person may experience pain or fatigue or psychological problems that make them unable to do basic things for themselves. For example, showering, washing the hair, going to work, and cooking. I want to pause here quickly, and I just also want to add that anxiety also plays a huge role, because anxiety can lead to depression, and depression can lead to other things. So it's something that you really need to keep an eye on. Your colleagues, your clients, your family, your friends, if you see somebody is in distress, speak to them if they want to speak about it. And let's help each other, because there is so much madness going on in this world that the one thing that we can do is to care for one another. And chronic illness doesn't discriminate on gender, age, or race. And on the left-hand side, again, I've got the photo of a youngish lady standing, and the shadow is of an old lady with a walking stick, and it says what I look like versus what I feel like. And on the right-hand side, it says I'm fine, but if you read the F, it says depressed, worried, in pain. The I is lonely, exhausted, hurting. The N, terrified, unable to work, feeling useless. And then the E is stressed, losing hope, broken, and fighting. Being able to walk pain-free is a blessing. Being able to walk without showing the pain is a skill. I'm not going to read those again because we have covered all of those different types of examples. And then I'm going to end off this session with this little video clip.
I'm Caroline Mulios, and I have achalasia.
Severe osteoarthritis,
lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, endometriosis, and Hashimoto's.
Chronic migraines.
systemic lupus. I've had both shoulders replaced, both knees replaced.
I had this excruciating pain in my shoulder. I couldn't use my hands for about a month. They had swollen to massive size.
The migraines are so excruciatingly painful that you can't, later on in the day, you can't do your homework.
I have had people say, well, you don't look sick.
That's when, it's kind of like, yeah.
I say that it's a lot more complicated than it looks.
I really, really wish that there was a way to knock some compassion into people.
And they see me as like this active person who loves to dance.
So I used looking normal to my advantage. But I really try to keep that strong front. So when I'm outside and I'm at a walk or a run, it looks like everything's fine.
It makes you a stronger person.
It's definitely given me some patience.
It's taught me more patience.
I had to learn how to have compassion for myself.
I'm Caroline Mulios, and I'm not my illness.
I am not lupus.
I'm not lupus.
I'm not my chronic migraines.
I am not my invisible illness.
I am not my illness.
So to end off, again, there's a photo of a lot of people standing in a group, but you would not be able to tell if any one of them have depression or any other invisible impairment. So my question to you would be, specifically working in shelters, do you find that more of your clients are feeling the anxiety, depression, and what are you doing about that? And even your staff members and volunteers that's working at the shelters, is there anything that you picked up since COVID? If I can take it as far back as that, because that is really when people started feeling all of these things that are causing the anxiety and depression and the rest of that. Any comments maybe from your side? Or are you still pondering over the information? Good. Then we are going to move over to Fani, that's going to speak now. I just want to confirm, are we still audible?
Yes, you are. Thank you, Dani.
Okay, thank you.
Can anybody tell me, do you know what multiple sclerosis is? Or have you heard about it? Anybody, what do you think multiple sclerosis is? Okay, the next question. When Dani started the presentation, he spoke about the 5 impairments according to the white paper. And he actually mentioned under which impairment MS is. Can anybody remember under those 5: mobility impaired, sensory, intellectual, neurological, psychosocial, under which impairment do you think MS fall under? Anybody? This is called the snowflake disease, because with more than 50 symptoms, no 2 people with MS will have the same needs and requirements. That's what Dylan said as well earlier regarding people with vision impairment. And that goes for all types of impairments. Doesn't mean if it's not one size fits all. So the best is if you've got clients or residents or even staff that's got impairments, ask the person how you can assist that person, and he or she will tell you. I'll show a video on MS.
There's nothing stopping this one, man.
Multiple sclerosis is a chronic, incurable disease. It's a condition of the nervous system, and I've had it for 34 years. To explain or give an example, when I was 16, I was at school, at break, I I was just playing around with my friends, and suddenly I felt strange, and I realized I had gone blind in one eye. Just, it felt very strange, and they injected cortisone into my eyelid, and my vision came back. So a sclerosis, because I come from a Greek family, I know the word is sklerosi, which means a hardening or a block. So what's happened, if you've got a sclerosis in your brain, that means it's like a pathway. It's like, when you've got a lamp and the globe goes. The way in which it does that is that there is a covering of the nerves in the brain called myelin. And what this horrible disease does is that it breaks the myelin sheath, so the nerves don't have any protection or covering. There is extensive research that is ongoing to find a cure for multiple sclerosis. So the medication I have been on is an injection which apparently stops the disease from progressing and getting far worse. I think it's more common in women. For some strange reason, it's gender bias. Probably more like thousands than millions in South Africa. So it's not as widespread as HIV, but it is pretty widespread. Well, you can look online and find your nearest MS branch, but the MS Inland Society in Gauteng is 477 3540. 011 477 3540.
Understanding MS. MS is a chronic illness that affects the nervous system, that's the brain and the spinal cord. So in my case, the nerves, the protection, the myelin that's supposed to protect my nerves is damaged. My body's own immune system is attacking the nerves. So the message from my brain to my feet when I walk doesn't always go through quick enough. So a lot of times in the evening when I get home, I get undressed, I'm full of bruises because I walk into things because my brain doesn't tell my feet quickly or legs, be careful, there's an obstacle. Despite the fact that I'm visually impaired, I only have 10% vision, it's because the nerves are not protected. My body's immune system is attacking the nerves. On the picture, you'll see on the left-hand side is a picture of a healthy nervous system. On the right-hand side of an unhealthy nervous system where the myelin doesn't protect the nervous system anymore. What causes MS? There is no cause MS. Still, I was diagnosed in 2006 and till date, 1996, till date, they could not say anything about what's the cause of MS. MS is detected only through an MRI scan. That's the only way they can see if you've got MS or not. Statistics, there's about 2.5 million people worldwide. In South Africa, it's about 5,000, although I was reading up this morning, they say about 1 in every 700 people in South Africa might have MS. It's more effective on women. It's normally between the ages of 20 and 40. Although every year I have to go to my neurologist for my medical aid to approve my medication, also to give a report on the progress of my MS. And she said more and more young people, kids, come to her that's been diagnosed with MS. And it's also more in the Caucasian area that people will have MS. Symptoms. There are various symptoms. There's pain, muscle stiffness, weakness, walking imbalance. If you would walk behind me 10 o'clock in the morning, you would think I'm drunk because I don't have balance. So I walk like I'm drunk. But that's because of the MS. Bladder and bowel movements. I will go to a shopping center. I will go to a bathroom. 10 minutes later, I will look for another bathroom again. So you have staff working in your shelters or clients or residents, and somebody disclosed that he or she has got MS, and that person wants to go to the bathroom every 5 or 10 minutes. Don't think, what is this person up to? That's unfortunately because of the MS. The challenge actually, you're not going to know if your client or staff has got MS, because as Dani said earlier on, that's why we do these sessions, for people to disclose their disability. And hopefully you'll be able to get more information from your clients. Heat sensitivity. I don't know what the shelters, the environment, your shelters, if there's aircon and so on. When it's summer, I battle a lot. I get tired very quickly, and I battle to walk long distances because of the heat. So try and, if you need to meet with a client and you know that person's got MS or staff member, try and meet in a surrounding where it's cool, where it's not so hot, everything. Something else that's also very, very important. If you've got somebody with MS, a client or a staff member, and there's a lots of noise in the shelters or the office, wherever, it affects the person very badly, in the sense of, here at my office, if staff talks loudly, it's like my nerves are very sensitive. So it's like somebody shuts something in my ear. So make sure that the environment is very quiet, that it's not too warm, and that it's pleasant for the client or for the staff member. Common other symptoms, depression and mood swings, problem solving. I think, mood swings, society or life, I think we all go through stages where we mood swings and depression because of various factors. But MS just sort of aggravate the whole situation that you have mood swings and depression. Misunderstandings, that all people with MS will end up in a wheelchair. People with MS cannot work. People with MS cannot have children. That only affects white people. MS can affect anybody. Doesn't matter what your background are, your race, color. It can affect anybody. How to care for somebody with MS? Try and understand MS. Ask the person, how can you help? Remember I said earlier about the symptoms. If you've got somebody with MS, whether it's a staff member or a client, memory loss, if you give this person a task, try and repeat it over and over and make it as simple as possible. I spoke about heat sensitivity. Try and make the environment that it's cool, that it's not in a warm environment, because the person will get tired very quickly. Pain, I think as one gets older, your body's got aches and pains where it didn't happen previous day. So it's obviously that, try and yoga. And also come back to the depression and mood swing. If you've got a happy work environment, it adds up to that you don't feel depressed and mood swing. But if your clients come to your shelter, whatever, and there's tension or it's not a nice environment, and the person with MS, that person's going to fill it up immediately and get more depressed and mood swings. And finally, If you could see my invisible illness, would you now believe in how much pain I am? Are there any questions, any comments? Thank you.
Thank you, Fani. I'm just going to stop sharing now. And let me just put my camera on again. There we go. So my apologies for the background. As you know, we are in casual day currently, and we have boxes of merchandise everywhere, even in the boardrooms. So that is the conclusion of the presentation that we prepared for you today, and what we also use in other setups, corporates, NGOs, and we did this with court preparation officers as well. And I normally leave a bit of time at the end for questions and answers for those who did not have the opportunity. And then if there's anything that we have not touched on that you wanted to have more information on, now it's your time to ask any questions, and we will gladly answer to the best of our capabilities. So the floor is yours. So please, if there's anything you would like to ask.
Thanks, Dani. There's currently nothing in the chat. Anyone who feels comfortable, if they're not comfortable to speak online, they can more than welcome put it in the chat, and I'll read it out for you. Thanks.
Okay. I can see that in the chat on Fani's question before he presented, asking what impairment MS is, and I think it's Sigana that said it's a neurological impairment, which
That's
is
correct.
Which is correct, yes.
Thank you.
So that is good. Thank you for that. Anything that you've heard today that you do not agree with, if I can ask that?
Or anything that you need more clarity on?
So what I will also put on the table, if there's anybody that have any questions or comments or wants to have more information, Melanie, can they contact you maybe, or Miriam to email us, and we can assist via email or a telephone call, because that is why we are here to help you, to assist you. Specifically with your clients, and then please don't forget your own staff members, like we were saying the whole day. We need to look at each other, and if somebody is really battling to disclose a impairment, specifically the invisible ones that I've mentioned, we can also assist, but I'm sure that you've got all of those things in place from your HR side. So then from our side, we would like to thank you for almost, it's now 12:15, for the time that you've given from your busy schedules to listen to us. And I really do hope that you are taking away something today that's meaningful. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you, Miriam, for organizing this, and Melanie for your assistance.
Thank you, everybody, from my
So,
side.
Thank you.
For your
Thank
side,
you.
Melanie, I think you can close the session for us.
Thanks, Dani, and the team at NCPD. We really do appreciate it. It's been very insightful. I must say I've learned quite a bit, coming from experience with my daughter, who we've just recently been diagnosed with epilepsy. I did not know it was considered as a disability. You know, it's something good to know and to take with me home, because it is something we're very conscious of and also very fearful of, especially with her being a young little girl. It was fearful to send her back to school and let her play outside and do things like that. So it does become a problem when you try and also hinder them from having a normal life, whereas they're still kids, they still need to have a normal life, even though it is something that it could trigger on, you never know. It's just something, one thing that could cause to another. So from my side, thank you so much. It's really been really informative. I do go home with a lot more information and knowledge now and how to handle things, and we do thank you all for that. I'm sure everyone else on the session feels the same way I feel. We're grateful and we thank you. I've posted my email address as well as Miriam's on the chat. If anyone does have any questions or would like to be in touch with Dani and his team, you're more than welcome to contact myself or Miriam. Delene's asked if the presentation will be shared. Yes, we will be sharing the presentation as well, because it was a lot of information and obviously, we don't always remember everything. So we will be sharing the recording with everybody. But once again, on behalf of the National Shelter Movement, thank you, Dani, NCPD. We do appreciate everything that you guys have done for us. Thank you.
It's only our pleasure and a privilege to share information with you, and you must have a lovely week ahead, and please support Casual Day on Friday.
Yes, definitely. We've all got our stickers, so thanks for that, and all the best to you guys. Take care.
Thank you.
And thanks once again.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thanks, team.
Thank you
Bye.
very much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.